My name is Mark Strigl. In 2005, I started a podcast and website with one of my best friends called Talking Metal. Since then, John Ostrosky, aka Ostronomy, and myself have gotten Talking Metal on numerous TV stations. We've become the most listened to audio hard rock podcast on iTunes. We've appeared in and written for magazines, and John's even co-wrote a book that was on the New York Times bestseller list. Now, we present you with the next step of the Talking Metal journey, a new online TV show called Talking Metal Pirate Radio, available exclusively on our YouTube page. On this episode, we welcome Yanik Gers from Iron Maiden, former Kiss member Ace Frehley, former Iron Maiden vocalist Paul Di'Anno, ex-Danzig, current Ace Frehley guitarist Todd, Billy May from Kissnation, and our in-house announcer Bud Friendly. But right now, let's kick things off with a Talking Metal jam featuring Rob Dukes from Exodus, guitarist Dan Lorenzo from Hades, drummer Ron Lipnicki from Overkill. This is our cover of Snowblind, which originally appeared on the 1972 Black Sabbath album, Volume 4.
You're the one that's really spacecraft has landed, and the occupants are hungry for metal. This is Talking Metal. And now, your hosts, Mark and John.
Hey guys, you are watching Talking Metal here, and I want to introduce my co-host. You guys might know him as a best-selling New York Times author. He recently had a book come out on VH1 Classics, Simon Schuster book print or company, whatever you want to call it, the Ace Frehley book. It's the one and only John Ostronomy. How are you, John?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you, Mark Strigl. Yeah, that was No Regrets by Ace Frehley, Joe Layden, and John Ostrosky. My real name I used on that, but here I am, John Ostronomy. We are happy to be back.
And we wanted to talk some Iron Maiden with you guys because we recently caught up with Paul Di'Anno, the great former Iron Maiden vocalist.
Absolutely. Legendary guy.
Yanik Gers, too, the current guitar player, one of three.
Absolutely.
From Iron Maiden. And a lot of you guys might not know this, but I always find this totally wild and crazy that Yanik, before he was in Iron Maiden, actually played with not only Paul Di'Anno, but Clive Burr, too.
Wow.
In a band called Gogmagog. Let's talk to Yanik right now and hear what he has to say about Gogmagog.
Paul I haven't seen for a long, long time. I did a little bit of work with him. He's a great guy. He's a really fun fella to hang out with. I think we had Neil Murray in the band, who's a tremendous bass player, and Pete Willis from Def Leppard was in that Gogmagog. And basically we just got together for an afternoon with a guy called Jonathan King, who's a bit of an entrepreneur, and he had some songs, and he went to Geffen and he was after putting a band together, so they called us up. He actually rang me up and I told him to bugger off, and I didn't think it was him. I thought it was one of my friends mucking around. And when he finally got through and said it was him, he rang me 3 times before I believed it was him anyway. Kept putting the phone down. And then I said, I think you've got the wrong guy. I said, one, I've never been to America. The Gillan Band were big in Europe, were big in the Far East. We travelled extensively in those places, but not in America. And he said, look, I've got an extensive American network of people, and you're the guitar player, the one in this band. So I went along to the studio and we just basically went through 3 tracks in an afternoon, put a few solos down, had a really good time, had some good fun, and left it to him. He went to Geffen, couldn't get the deal he wanted, and so he put the single out as a taster for an album if he could put that together, but that never materialised. But it was really good fun. It was done very quickly and very tongue-in-cheek, and we had a good laugh.
That was Yanik talking about Gogmagog, a band that featured all sorts of cool people like Neil Murray, played with Whitesnake, Pete Willis from Def Leppard, Paul Di'Anno, of course, Yanik Gers, and also a guy named Clive Burr.
Unfortunately, Clive Burr has been very ill for a while, and you spoke to Paul Di'Anno about it.
Clive Burr has not been well physically. No. Have you heard from him at all? Do you know what his current state is?
Not very good at all. Last time I spoke to Clive, tried to speak to Clive, he was... he sounds drunk all the time. He sounds like he's in his voice. Multiple sclerosis has got many different ways. It's a bloody evil disease. He can't walk, can hardly use his hands now, and it's all in his voice. He sounds terrible. I mean, I think I've done quite a few Clive aids. Yeah. I'll do as many as they want me to, just to sort of help out, because he's a great friend, and sure, I love him to death. But it's very difficult for me to sort of see him, because I always want to cry, and I think that's the last thing he needs for me to do is that. But he's got the great support of Mimi, his wife, and stuff. She's also a sufferer herself. But,
I heard that.
Yeah, but she's got very little of it. There's all different stages. And Clyde's probably one of the worst stages you can ever get of it. Wow. But it's so sad. I don't know. I hope he's happy. I don't suppose you would be, really, with that. But as happy as you can be. But we're doing this Clive aid thing because we're trying to get all the money up for him to go and have this stem cell treatment.
Oh, okay.
But it's bloody dangerous as well, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
risky.
The thing is, he's going to die anyway of the multiple sclerosis, or you're going to die at some stage. So to me, I'd take the chance if it was me, because you've got nothing to lose. Right. And it could give him something where he could actually walk again. I'm not going to say he's ever going to play drums again, because I doubt that'll ever happen. Yeah. But, a lot more movement than that, because when we was filming that, what was it, the early years or whatever it was for Iron Maiden, we went up and done our bits.
The DVD release.
I see Clive a couple of weeks before that, and he was walking.
Wow.
And then apparently he got up to get his remote control of the TV and fell over backwards and has ended up in a wheelchair, and he's been in it ever bloody since.
Wow.
I like Clive Burr. Clive Burr was in up until when Nico McBrain took over on the Peace of Mind album.
So Gogmagog, kind of an obscure band featuring, again, Clive Burr, Paul Di'Anno, and, of course, Yanik Gers, had a song written. They did a 3-song kind of EP, and the main song was written by a guy named Russ Ballard, who you're the Kiss expert. You know, you've been on TV as the metal expert, the Kiss expert, written books about Kiss. You have produced for VH1 DVD release, right? The Kissology.
Yes. Yeah, Russ Ballard is an amazing guy. He was in a group called Argent, and some of you Kiss fans might know the song God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too. That was a cover of Argent's God Gave Rock and Roll to You. Now, Kiss fans will also know that Russ Ballard wrote the song New York Groove, and he also wrote the song Into the Night, which was the first single off of Ace's Frehley's Comet record that came out in 1987. But what you may not know is Russ Ballard wrote a lot of other songs that I know that you guys have heard. He wrote a song called Liar by Three Dog Night. He wrote... I'm just going to list a couple of songs.
Yeah,
some of these are rock, some of them aren't. He wrote with the Bay City Rollers. He wrote I Surrender, which was recorded by Rainbow and also Stradivarius. No, in fact, he wrote Just a Dream Away, recorded by Roger Daltrey. Free Me by Roger Daltrey. My Time Is Gonna Come, Roger Daltrey. He wrote Let Me Rock You, recorded by Peter Criss, and that was the title of one of Peter Criss's post-Kiss solo records. And he wrote some really, really well-known songs, and I'm just going to try to find it here. Since You've Been Gone, he wrote
the Rainbow song?
Since you've been gone, I'm out of my head, can't take it.
Yeah, Rainbow's 1980 hit, Since You've Been Gone. He wrote that. And he wrote stuff that wound up Uriah Heep, On the Rebound. He wrote that.
On the Rebound.
Yeah, which was an Uriah Heep tune. And there was one...
And he covered that solo, too, because I do have that on my iPod, yeah.
Very cool. And then, you know that song, You Can Do Magic? By
You Can Do Magic.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And then there's some little keyboard part there. He wrote that song. So this guy has written like a ton of songs, and it's just amazing that everybody wants to cover Russ Ballard tunes.
Cool. Well, this is kind of just this weird kind of anomaly of Iron Maiden characters before, past and present. It was Gogmagog from the mid 1980s, and this is a song. Paul Di'Anno, Yanik Gers, and Clive Burr, Pete Willis, and Neil Murray doing a Russ Ballard song. This is called I Will Be There, and we will be right back on Talking Metal. Thanks so much for joining us on Talking Metal. I am here with John, Ostronomy. We do a show called Talking Metal. We've been doing it since 2005 in numerous formats. Probably our most popular format is the podcast version of the show.
Right, which is also available at talkingmetal.com and iTunes. We also have Todd Youth coming up from Ace Frehley's band.
Cool.
And, guys, Todd has been in a zillion bands. Agnostic Front, Murphy's Law, Danzig, Degeneration, Motorhead. The list goes on.
It does. But while we're waiting on Todd to show up, we recently caught up with Ace, a guy who John's written a book with, a guy who you've known for many, many years.
Yeah, absolutely. I've known Ace Frehley since 1987. I met him in a small town called Old Forge, Pennsylvania, right when the Frehley's Comet record came out, and it was one of Ace's first Frehley's Comet shows after the album was released.
Cool. And what did you talk to Ace about?
So I talked to Ace about recording the album Anomaly. I talked to him about UFOs, and we did a little jamming together, and it was just a great, great interview.
What did you guys jam on?
We jammed on the track Outer Space. Cool. Can we play it together?
Sure.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Which was the first single off of Ace's last record, which is a couple years old at this point, Anomaly. And if you haven't heard it, definitely pick it up.
Ace talked about a lot of the different tunes on the record. One of them that I thought was really great was a song called A Little Below the Angels.
I talk about my recovery and I suggest certain things. But I actually rewrote that song 3 times, and at the very last minute I heard in my head, I heard little kids singing the chorus. So I had a first grade school teacher, a friend of mine, Will, got his girlfriend who's a teacher. We had a first grade class all set up, and it fell through. I couldn't make it. So at the last minute I called up my friend Mike Super. He came over with his daughter and 2 of her friends, and they knocked it off in an hour. It was unbelievable. They never heard the song before, and they just sang it after listening to it 2 or 3 times. So I guess that's a good test or barometer whether or not it's a good hook.
Now, Ace has had numerous abduction experiences or UFO encounters of the third kind. I know he talks about it in his book. He's spoken about it on the Eddie Trunk Show before. And you actually spoke to Ace about it too.
You know, I'm in the Hudson Valley, and if you're a UFO buff, then you would absolutely know of all the activity that's going on around where I live. So I see UFOs all the time, you know.
We are going to be joined in the studio by a very special guest shortly, Todd Youth, who's played with so many great bands, and he's currently playing with your man, Ace.
Todd has played with so many amazing groups. Like we said, Danzig, Agnostic Front when he was 12 years old, Murphy's Law, just a ton of people, Degeneration, a bunch of bands that we've been fans of, and a bunch of other bands. He played with Glenn Campbell, which I was always a fan of Glenn Campbell. Not metal, but very, very cool. And filled in with Motorhead. Lots of cool stuff. This guy is an amazing guitar player and an amazing person, too. That's one of the reasons I think he gets all the gigs, because he's such a cool guy.
Cool. Well, we can't wait to talk to Todd. We're going to bring him right in the studio, and we'll be back in exactly 3 minutes. This is American Dream by Mr. Todd Youth and the band Capricorn.
More Talking Metal coming up. We're back with Talking Metal. And now your hosts, Mark and John.
Yo.
Hey, thank you, Bud Friendly. Hey, Mark, how you doing? We are very happy because in the studio we've got the one and only Todd Youth. Todd, what's going on, buddy?
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me up here.
Oh, thanks for coming, Todd. Now, if you guys don't know Todd Youth, he's played with everybody from Glenn Campbell to Murphy's Law to Ace Frehley to
Agnostic
Danzig.
Front.
Yeah, I mean, so many different bands and projects. Let's go way, way back, Todd. When did you originally start playing guitar? I mean, you had to be very young.
Yeah, no, my father's a guitar player, and so by the time I was like 5 or 6, there was a guitar was in my hands.
Wow.
And I had gotten into one of the first live shows I went to was Christmas Eve '82, and I went to see the Bad Brains play at CBGB's, and that's when I started hanging out in the hardcore scene in New York. And I was really young; I was like 11 years old. And when I was 12, I joined kind of a legendary New York hardcore band called Agnostic Front.
12 years old.
12 years old.
That's unbelievable.
There's actually a video up on YouTube. If you look up Agnostic Front A7 or Agnostic Front earliest footage. I joined Murphy's Law when I was 15, and right after I joined the band, we got asked to go out on tour with the Beastie Boys when Fight for Your Right to Party was the number one song in the country. And, I'd never really left the tri-state area, and all of a sudden I'm, playing arenas and in a tour bus, and so I kind of been chasing it ever since. And I joined a band called Degeneration.
Right.
And in the mid-'90s. And I did that.
And when did you actually join? Mid-'90s, like 95?
No, it was like 96, 97.
After No Lunch came out?
Yeah, after No Lunch.
I started, they had been touring No Lunch when I joined the band.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did 5 weeks with Green Day in the States and 5 weeks in Europe with Green Day. And came home from that and made D-Gen's last record, Through the Darkness. And there was a EP that had come out, too.
Was it you and Danny Sage in the band at that time?
Yeah, it was me and Danny on guitars.
Oh, okay. Cool, because you replaced Richard, right?
Yeah, Rick.
Rick Bacchus, right?
Yeah. And, we did that record Through the Darkness, and I could see that, it was kind of coming to an end. So me and Michael, the drummer from D-Gen, started a band called Chrome Locust.
Mm-hmm. With Jim Hennigan.
With Jim Hennigan, exactly,
sure.
yes.
Which
Mark
I saw
was
you guys
good
play
friends with Jim
numerous
Hennigan.
times. Yeah, I wouldn't say good friends.
You
but
saw Chrome Locust play?
Yeah,
Wow.
I think at the Continental, right?
Yeah,
or was
probably.
it CB's? I'm
CB's could have been, yeah.
But I knew Jim. I haven't. I kind of casually, but I remember just from hanging out down there.
Now, I want to get into the stuff that Todd is currently doing with Ace and all this stuff, but I want to talk about something that's pretty funny. That one of your bands, one of the bands you've been in, Agnostic Front, was indirectly mentioned on Metalocalypse.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, and basically are you familiar with the show?
Yeah,
Metalocalypse?
I've seen it.
Which I think is just my favorite show on television. And one of the guys, Swisscar, the blonde shredder guitarist, he was naming all the bands that he was in, and they were talking about their past bands, and his first band was Agnostic Priest.
Wow.
Which was great. So that was definitely a reference to Agnostic Front. So I thought that was cool.
So let's kind of continue on with your history. We were. You toured with the Beastie Boys not with the Beastie Boys, but opening for the Beastie Boys with Murphy's Law. And from there, it was, I guess, many years later would have been Degeneration. Were you with Murphy's Law right up until you joined Degeneration?
We made like 3 or 4 records, and we were always on tour.
Okay.
We lived in a van for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
had you known just the D-Gen guys from kind of the scene?
I knew Jesse since I was probably about 12 years old.
Right.
Me and Jesse have been friends for a long time.
Okay.
And then I made one record with Chrome Locust, and that's when I got the call. All within 1 week, I got asked to audition for the Foo Fighters or join Danzig. And Degeneration at the end was so not fun. I was like, okay, what's going to be fun? It's not about the money. Where am I going to have the most fun? And
was this to replace Pat Smear in?
No, Franz. It was Pat had already left, and they had Franz, and it would have been replacing. Chris Shiflett ended up getting the gig. He was actually standing there with me when I got asked. A guy who worked for them came up to me and said, "Hey, look, they want to know if you want to audition." And Chris ran to a payphone. That's how long ago it was. It was pre-cell phones. Wow. He ran to a payphone and got himself an audition, and he ended up getting the gig.
Wow.
And
where were you at the time?
I was in New York.
Or in LA?
I was in New York. And so I flew out to California, and I started rehearsing with Danzig, and that was for the Satan's Child tour. And I ended up doing the Sam Hain reunion tour, where I was doing 2 sets. I'd do a Sam Hain set, and we would do the blood and everything, and then I'd go take a quick shower, blow dry my hair, and come out and then do a Danzig set. So I was doing 2 sets a night.
And who was part of the? Was Steve Zing?
It was Steve Zing, London May, me, and Glenn.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And I stayed in Danzig for a few years, and I made did the record 7 with him. E Luciferi, I think's what it's called, and
Yeah, well, let's talk about that record. You were also in a music video, which maybe on the TV show version of this, we'll check out a little bit of the music video right now. Kiss the Skull.
Kiss the Skull.
Right. And any memories of shooting this video?
Well, it was Joey, who was really the reason why I joined Danzig in the first place. Was the drummer was Joey Castillo at the time, who's a drummer of Queens of the Stone Age now. And me and Joey's another one. We go back to, the early 80s, and he's somebody he's one of my favorite drummers. He's somebody I always wanted to work with. So that's the real reason why I joined Danzig, was because I wanted to play with Joe. And
such a hard-hitting drummer. I've seen him numerous times live. Yeah.
And the next day, we did that video, and the next day is when he quit and joined Queens.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Cool. So let's...
Danzig videos are always kind of the same, right? There's kind of like some strippery looking girl and some bad CGI skulls and, Glenn looking spooky into the camera.
Well, let's check out Kiss the Skull right now on Talking Metal.
Talking Metal's back. John, Mark.
That was Kiss the Skull by Danzig featuring Todd Youth.
Yes, it was.
Here, he's right here.
So, Todd, tell us about touring with Danzig. Did you have a close friendship with him, or were you kind of just like...
People bag on Glenn all the time, and they love to kind of talk trash on him, but he was, he's really generous. to the band. He really treated us good through the years. And
How many years did you play with him?
well, I joined in '99, and then I left in 2003. I'd gotten my own deal with Capitol Records, and that's when I left the band. And I came back again, and I did one more tour with him in 2000. I think it was the end of 2007. Maybe,
Okay.
I think it was the end of 2007. I did one more tour with him.
Must have been right before we went out and I did the interview with Glenn in late 2007. Must have been right after that tour.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, John
And-
was at Glenn Danzig's house.
Yeah.
It's a very spooky house.
Yep.
Did it smell like cat urine?
Yeah, I don't remember now, but I know there were cats around.
Oh, there's a
but-
lot of cats.
But I don't know if I was at that house. I was at the one that had the waterfall.
Okay, he actually bought Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's old house.
Yeah,
right,
which we weren't allowed to say
at the time,
at
yeah.
the time.
It wasn't a cat urine
But yeah,
waterfall,
I heard
was
about
it?
that other house. I don't think I was at. I wasn't at that house. Yeah.
That was a messed up house. That house it looked like the Addams Family.
And then at some point you started. I mean, Jesse Mellon, of course, has done a lot of successful solo stuff since Degeneration. Probably in a lot of ways, maybe more successful than Degeneration, if you will. You've been a part of that too, at least on the touring front.
Yeah,
have
and
you-
we've been writing in his next record. I toured with him for about 18 months,
yeah.
and but we got to backtrack, man. There's a whole lot of stuff we're missing.
Let's.
Okay,
We
yeah,
want
let's
to talk
go back
about
then.
Motorhead. And,
That's right, yeah. So after Danzig, I got in my own deal, and with Capitol, and I've had a band called the Chelsea Smiles, and we released an EP on Capitol, and we did 2 indie records, and we toured a whole bunch. We toured with the New York Dolls, we toured with Social Distortion, we toured Europe, and then I'd gotten a call on a Friday night from Todd Singerman, who manages Motorhead, that Phil Campbell's mom had died,
Okay.
and they were finishing up a tour, and would I be interested in finishing out the tour playing guitar? And Motorhead, since I was 10 years old, is one of my favorite bands, and I was a little kid. I used to sit in my bedroom and listen to No Sleep Till Hammersmith with the headphones on and just stare at the album cover, for hours. Like, this is what I want. I want Marshall Stacks, man. I want, and I'd known those guys from when I was in Danzig. We used to rehearse next door to each other, and I figured I'd have a few days to get it together. And the manager goes, "Okay, I need you on a plane Sunday morning. You got to do your first show Sunday night." So I finished out the tour. I did.
So you didn't have like a formal audition with them or anything?
No, I had played.
or-
There was times where it's like, Lemmy wouldn't be at rehearsal and Phil was working on his guitar sound, so he'd be like, "Come on, just play Lemmy's bass while we run through a couple songs." Or,
Okay.
And this would be out in L.A. at like a
This
rehearsal
is in Los
studio.
Angeles, yeah. And or Phil wouldn't be there, and I would play Phil's guitar, and I'd run through a couple of songs with them. So they knew I knew the old material, but there was a lot of new stuff I hadn't,
And
wasn't
would you just be in this like the room next door rehearsing with your own band, and then
Or with
Motorhead would be in?
Danzig, yeah.
Oh, with Danzig,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we used to rehearse next door to each other, Motorhead and Danzig.
Cool. Was that at Mates, or where'd you guys do that?
Yeah, that was at Mates.
Cool.
In the Valley. And so I went out and they said, your sound check on Sunday, we'll make it a real long one, like a rehearsal. And I get there and Lem's like, "What 2 songs you need the most work on?" And I'm like, "Sacrifice," and it was something else new. Sacrifice is kind of a really weird odd time song. And I ran through those 2 songs, and he's like, "You're fine," puts his bass down and walks off.
So isn't that
was it.
amazing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Todd told me this story. So here's the thing: he's about to go on a Motorhead tour, and Lemmy just he says, "Okay, try this one song," and it sounded good. And Lemmy's like, "Okay, we're gonna do the concert. I don't even need to hear you play." That's how much he trusted you, which is great.
Well, because he knew I was a fan, and I made sure
It's very Chuck Berry. You ever hear about it?
Oh,
he would
yeah.
just hire
We were
like a
just talking
local
about that
band
the other day.
Yeah.
I made sure any of these gigs that I've done where I've had to take somebody's place, I'm not going to try and reinterpret the guitar solo to Mother. Like, people want to hear it the way they've been listening to that song for 20 years.
Right.
I'm not going to reinterpret the guitar solo to Ace of Spades because, I know if I was in the audience, I want to hear it the way Fast Eddie Clark played it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I know that the Motorhead fans were really, really stoked, when I did those shows because I came out and I had the bullet belt on and a cowboy shirt, and I just made sure it was rock and roll. And,
Wow, very cool.
so I did a handful of shows with them, and I came home from that, and I'm still doing the Chelsea Smiles. And
Let's talk about that band. Who actually was in that band with you?
That was me, a guy named Carl who plays drums for Michael Monroe now. Guy Johnny Martin, who plays bass with me in Jesse Mallon's band, and a couple different guitar players through the years, other guitar players.
And who was the singer in that band?
It was me and this guy Sky would switch on and off.
Oh, okay.
And it was just a good, dirty rock and roll band. And it was around that time when, I guess, I finished touring it, and then that's when I started doing the studio stuff, and I started doing a lot of session work in L.A. I did Cheap Trick's last record, and I played on Glenn Campbell, the old country guy's record, and I started touring with him. And that's when I got the call to play with Ace. Actually, I was writing with Michael Monroe. I had written some stuff with Wednesday 13 from the Murder Dolls for the project called Gunfire 76. And I kind of bailed out on that. And then I was writing with Michael Monroe. I helped put his new band together, Michael from Hanoi Rocks. And that's when I got the call to join Ace's band.
For the Australian tour. Now, I want to talk about that, but I want to backtrack a second. And I was wondering if you can tell the story that you told me about how out of all the people that you played with, the one person that your dad was really impressed with was Glenn Campbell. Tell us the story.
I would have my father come out when I played in Danzig, and I'd have Marshall stacks and tons of guitars and techs and tour buses and all this stuff. And he would look at it and he'd be like, you need all this? You know what I mean? Because he comes from that school of just like, take your guitar, you plug it into an amp and you play. And it comes off your hands. And, I'd call him up. I'm like, I just played on Cheap Trick's new record. He's like, yeah, whatever. I just played on this record. So I call him up. I'm like, hey, Dad, I just played on Glenn Campbell's new record. And he goes, oh, my God, this is your big break. And I'd done that tour with Danzig in 2007. And he was going out again, like doing another Halloween run. So I had a choice. I could either go out with Danzig or go out with Glenn Campbell, because I got asked to join his touring band after we did all the promo for the album. And, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I called my dad, and he's like, well, you'll make the right decision. So I finally made the choice. Like, I needed, at that point in my life, to do something different musically. And I started touring with Glenn Campbell, and I got to work with orchestras for the first time, and rehearse with the London Philharmonic at Abbey Road Studios, like all these amazing things. And I called my dad, and I said, I made up my mind. I'm going to play with Glenn Campbell. And he goes to me, to people my age, that's as good as playing with Elvis Presley.
Cool.
Because, Glenn in the 70s had the TV show, and, he sold 40 million records or something. And
yeah. I mean, and even in the 70s, he kind of had when was he most popular? In the 60s?
Late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah. Because I know
Wichita Lyman,
Rhinestone Cowboy, which a lot of people thought was kind of a sellout, right?
Right,
I mean,
and that was mid-70s.
That was, okay.
But it was a huge hit.
Yeah, enormous hit. Yeah, I liked it as a kid.
And, it was great. It was great working with Glenn. Had been a session player first, and, so I think he saw a little something of himself in me. And but yeah, that's when I got asked to I'd actually been asked to play with Ace when they first put
the original, when Anthony first put the band together.
Yeah, but I'd committed to do that Danzig tour, and that's why I said, listen, I already committed to this. I can't bail on him. And so then Derek had left the band, and they called me up, and I went and met. My audition was to go meet with Ace at a restaurant, and
and much like Lemmy, he was like, I don't even think you guys rehearsed. He was just like, those songs, right? And you're like, songs. Yeah. Tell us about that, because you told me about what happened at this lunch audition.
Well, yeah, I'd gone from a photo shoot with Michael Monroe, and I knew I wasn't going to stick around for that thing, because I really wasn't that happy with his manager and stuff. And I love Michael to death, but I'd been down that road too many times with bad management. And so I got the call to do this Australian tour with Ace. And we met up at Barney's Beanery in L.A., which used to be like Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin's like favorite watering hole. And that was it. We just sat down. We talked about New York. We talked about this and that. And I mean, Ace has always, been... Ace is like my Chuck Berry or my Led Zeppelin, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's my favorite guitar player. So the hardest thing for me was having to learn the Paul Stanley parts.
Right, because you knew the Ace parts. Right.
But, and we hit it off, and that was it. And he was like, the songs, right? And I was like, well, we're going to rehearse in Australia. He's like, you know the songs, right? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, maybe we'll do something in a hotel room. But, it's trial by fire. And
That's great.
So let me ask both you guys, actually, is there any plans for like, I know when we spoke with Ace on the phone, he said possibly he was going to, maybe he seemed uncommitted about new music. He was talking about this stuff from the Volts that might come out. Do you guys think that there will be another Ace record
I'm sure there's definitely going to be another Ace record at some point.
Yeah, there's lots of talk, and hopefully me and him are going to do some writing together.
But that hasn't happened as of yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Hey, this is Todd Youth, and you're watching Talking Metal.
Hey guys, welcome to another Talking Metal Jam at Gibson Guitars here in New York City. We got Billy May coming down to do a Kiss classic with us today. Billy plays in Kissnation. Thank you so much for doing this with us. Where's the best place that the Talking Metal listeners and viewers can get in touch with you online?
Kissnation.com. Very easy. And thanks for having me.
Oh, you bet. And you guys used to play in a band together, right?
We used to be in the Electric Magic Sideshow, but I was back on the drums.
We were. Oh, wow. Yeah. For many years. Yeah.
And also on this track, guys, we're going to have Chandler from Outloud joining us for backing vocals. Ron from Overkill, Ron Lipnicki on the drums today. Dan Lorenzo from Hades, Nonfiction, and The Cursed. I'm Mark Strigl, and you obviously know John Ostronomy. Let's do this.